Hello, and welcome back to Tsumihoroboshi, where I last left off. I believe I left around the 50-minute mark, although I could be wrong. Let's see here. If I go through the last part where I recorded, yeah, I recorded it for like 49 minutes, and before where we last left off, we were still in the middle. I believe we're after the part where we already went through, you know, all these stories of Yashiro sama and within Reina's perspective and all that stuff. But yeah, let's continue. And I think I like stopped briefly because like there was some background noise like coming around. So let's let's see how it goes. That's impossible. Plus, I didn't get any shots of a suspicious drug like that. I had a normal life in Ibaraki. I wasn't involved with the Sonozaki family or the Kimiyoshi family. Oishi-san asked me a favor. All right, I forgot the part where Reina was I could say she got interrogated by Oishi, but because I remember she got her interrogated, and then according to the first chapter on replay as Keiichi, he got interrogated by the same detective as well. He asked me to tell him secretly if I saw or heard anything suspicious. It could be about Mi-chan, Rika-chan, or anybody in the village. Well, seems to be like that. Mio-san believed my story about Oyashiro-sama. Now she's gone. Toмотaki-san died by doing the same thing I did. Oh, no, 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 no. I don't want to get involved with the curse of Oyashiro-sama. Is this a conspiracy of a group of fanatical cult members, or is it the curse of Oyashiro-sama? Is everything just a set of coincidences? Or maybe it's a mixture of a conspiracy and the curse? I don't know. Is it the work of humans, the curse, or a coincidence? Oh no. Even the light at the sunset was making me feel dizzy. When did the sunlight in Namizawa get so mean? Mio-san told me to keep her investigation secret. Yeah, well, a top secret. I have her top secret scrapbooks. Well, better not get caught with that. They might hold the truth about everything. When I realized that, I got scared all of a sudden. I might end up the same way as Mio-san because I have her scrapbooks. If it's a conspiracy, I'll be erased. If it's the curse, I'll be cursed. I should burn the scrapbooks. That's the safest thing to do. But Mio-san believed my story. Mio-san listened to me without laughing. It'd feel wrong to burn them without taking a look. I mean, it doesn't hurt to. It's not like anyone is out there trying to spy on you. Without hurting to take a look. If it's a conspiracy, I have to expose it. If it's the curse, I have to break it. I shouldn't run away. I should fight. That's right. I decided to fight, to seize my happiness. I shouldn't give in to misfortunes. I have to fight. I'm going to get rid of all the things that are trying to ruin my peaceful life. As it should be. Because, you know, who doesn't like to be happy? I'm going to read her scrapbooks when I get home. I started walking faster. Oh, that's where I should have like ended up, but fortunately I had to leave it at a cliffhanger. You have received new tips. A lunch takeout list. Mm, now this will be an interesting read, to be quite honest. Let's see. Yes, how many tips we got? Yeah, we got one. Yeah, it's only one. Like, seems to be like it. Let's read it. Attention. I think it's ATTN for attention, though I could be wrong. Um, Let's see. Yeah. Hello. To get straight to the point, we can assume that this is an acute case of post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder? The fuck? The patient is subject to tremendous stress because of their parents' sudden divorce and being forced to choose to live with either her mother or her father. Oh, I believe the patient is talking about Reina. Furthermore, the patient firmly believes that she was responsible for her parents' divorce, which further drives her to self-mutilation. The patient's largest shock stems from a sense of betrayal of her own household, which she believed was an absolute safe haven. Henceforth, there is a high possibility that the patient will resort to psychological defense measures to protect her family. Okay. For example, she might feel high disdain for any person of the opposite sex who approaches her father. She might feel uncomfortable about having other people in her home. She may also display eccentric behavior in order to keep people away from it. As an example of the latter, there are reported cases of patients unconsciously bringing home garbage. It's highly important that the patient remains in close communication with her father. By deepening the communication between the two of them, it'll strengthen their family bond and loosen up her anxiety. Since the patient only shows signs of an acute syndrome in this case, there's a very good chance that she'll recover within 3 months with her father's support and proper medication. However, it's common for a patient who seemed to have recovered to have a sudden reoccurrence, a flashback even after 10 years. Her father is still fairly young, and there's still a chance that he could remarry. However, seeing an unfamiliar member of the opposite sex through remarriage could trigger a flashback in the patient, which may lead to avoidance behavior or hyperawareness. I mean, it's got to be talking about Reina at this point, considering that what she talked about in the past segments of the she has to go through a freaking she has to witness a divorce. Please explain this part thoroughly to the father in order for him to understand the recovery process. Should the father decide to remarry, it's recommended that he should hold off in telling the patient until she reaches the age where she's capable of living independently. Also, the cause of the patient's psychosomatic self-mutilating behavior, delusional parasitosis, seemed to be its own culture-bound syndrome. Man, there's a lot of medical information involved in this one. The patient blindly believes that leaving her home village will cause a curse, and that this curse was the cause of her parents' divorce. Well, it could be a theory. We believe this is a subconscious defensive mechanism to reduce her mental trauma by shifting the blame from herself to her village's curse. According to the patient's statement, the culture of her home village is extremely strict and exclusive. The patient believes that there's no way to be saved from the curse other than by going back to the village, as the curse will continue as long as she lives in her current environment. You don't say. Through this, we see an inclination of schizophrenia and believe the chances are high that the patient will continue to alter their perceived reality. Schizophrenia, a case where patients' personalities are reduced, causing altered perceptions of reality and delusions. You know what? Schizophrenia is a term that I used very, very often. So, her delusion about the maggots dwelling in her blood is a perfect example, and is also the cause of her psychosomatic self-mutilating behavior. When a delusion involves psychosomatic self-mutilating behavior, it's extremely dangerous. See, there's no way you can get maggots devolved into the body because it's got to be like some sort of fucking a delusion of a sort, a dangerous sort of mental health. It's extremely dangerous. I highly recommend for the father to move back to the village if he's financially capable, allowing her to live with relatives in the village if he's Allowing her to live with relatives in the village might also work. If such a strong belief can reduce symptoms such as self-mutilation, then there might be other cases similar to this one. Perhaps prior medical files that document similar culture-bound syndromes may be available at a large medical institution in our local area. It'll then be possible to provide better and more accurate mental care for the patient by obtaining these case files. This B5 sized letter was with a bunch of memos. The following was on the backside of the letter: 1 Chukadon, 3 Shanghai style Gomoku yakisoba, 1 large fried rice. Hmm, well, what a way to fulfill a meal. And these are the new tips. Well, there's only one big page worth. Um, you know what? Yeah, let's save here. Chapter 7. God damn. I guess we're like, I feel like I believe we're halfway in, or more than halfway in. But considering that we're 11 minutes in, we might as well continue, right? About homing ability and homesickness. If you interpret homing ability in a broad sense, you can say that most animals have a homing ability. It's the same with humans. We like to sleep, rest, and eat at a place where we feel comfortable, namely our homes. Your home is to you what nests are to animals. Therefore, we could say that humans have a homing ability as well. But a little bit of an interruption here. So the tip that I read over is talking about the patient that goes that is Reina, obviously. And it's talking about like all these, you know, what is affecting the mental health and the maggots that are within her is probably a delusion, and is using the term schizophrenia. So I was like, it's pretty wild. So it's kind of funny how like I read the one where it's like she's trying to remove the maggots out, and then all of a sudden like the little tip is like, oh, this it's got to be the answer to this. So yeah, just gonna throw that little simple thing out. First of all, why do animals need nests? The answer is the same as for humans. Sleeping, resting, and eating are the essential actions for survival. At the same time, those actions leave one defenseless as well. That's why you need a safe area where you can be defenseless. Everybody knows that not having this safe area results in a high level of stress. When you move an animal to a new environment, it naturally becomes stressed. When you force a person to live in a foreign land where they aren't comfortable, they become greatly stressed as well. Everybody also knows that this kind of stress is called homesickness. The Japanese don't know much about homesickness. We define it as mental weakness and we neglected to treat it for a long period of time. However, homesickness has a very long history. In Europe's Middle Ages, where people believed that it wasn't a mental but rather a physical disease. People also believed that out of everyone, the Swiss got the disease the most. Oh, we're talking a little bit of history here, huh? The Swiss, you see, were known to be an ethnic group that worked away from home in that era. They lived far away from their homes. There were no telephones at that time, so they couldn't even hear their families' voices for ages and ages. It's easy to imagine that the young Swiss workers got homesick while working in this strange land. These Swiss who got homesick wanted to go home, but they couldn't because of their jobs. The conflict made them weak physically and mentally. Some of them went crazy and tried to escape from their reality by committing suicide or running away. Well then. The Swiss at the time were very superstitious, and many folk remedies and occult like treatments to prevent homesickness went around. Since going home was the only treatment, they must have called it a fatal disease. But it isn't really one, of course. Specifically, homesickness is a sign of that human homing instinct. Your brain desires to go back to your safe area, namely your home. More like Hinamizawa. At first, your brain makes you remember the happy memories of your home and it urges you to go home in a natural way. But when reason stops you from achieving your desire, your brain starts sending unnatural signals to your body. As a result, your body gets weak, and that makes it more difficult for you to live in a strange land. In the end, you have to bend reason in order to achieve your desire to go home. So, homesickness is born from our homing instincts, and the stronger one's homing instinct is, the stronger their homesickness. The strength of that homing instinct varies from individual to individual and depends on the environment in which those individuals live. When your home is safe and the environment you live is dangerous, your homing instinct grows stronger. On the other hand, when the environment you live in is safer than your homing instinct becomes very weak. Safety isn't the only element that affects its strength. Cultural aspects affect it too. The many customs demanding families to return home for major events varies with each region. So your birthplace culture also alters the strength of your homing instinct. Amongst those regions, the transcendents of Onikafuchi village were believed to have an excessively strong homing instinct. The people of Onikafuchi forbade their fellows from ever leaving. Many believed this was the effect of the elitism, oh my, and sense of purity I already mentioned before. People today still strongly believe that Oyashiro-sama puts his curse on you if you break his rule and abandon the village. This superstition can be interpreted as homesickness. If homesickness is directly proportional to one's homing instinct, then the exaggerated expression curse could signify the strength of that homesickness and also their homing instinct. I can assume that they hated the outside world and created an insular insular society precisely because of their powerful homing ability. Unfortunately, there's no way to measure the strength of the homing ability that the primitive people of Onikafuchi had. It was so strongly forbidden to leave the village that nobody left long enough to get homesick. However, after the Meiji era, things changed. The sacredness of Onikafuchi dwindled with the efforts of modernization. Many young people started longing for city life, and some people were forced to leave the village to get a job. As a result, villagers started venturing outside the village borders. That was when the transcendents of Onikafuchi realized how strong their homing ability was for the first time. The residents of Hinamizawa got extremely homesick. After a while, people started to call this homesickness the curse of a Yoshiro-sama. It became rumored that a person who left the village to get a job in a strange land was cursed, that he went crazy and died, and people who had left the village started coming back to either it or the nearby town. Their homesickness and their homing ability were very strong because of their culture. It's reasonable to think that these were cultivated by the unique religion in Hinamizawa, namely the cult of Yoshiro-sama. From the moment they were born, they were taught the rules of Yoshiro-sama. They must have felt guilty about leaving the village unconsciously. As a result, they considered their homesickness to be the curse of Yoshiro-sama. I'm not sure if their homesickness got stronger because of the rules of Yoshiro-sama, or if they made the rules of Yoshiro-sama because their homesickness got stronger. I don't know which came first. I got tired of reading such small print and lay down on the floor on my back. The true identity of the curse of Yoshiro-sama is homesickness. Mio-san believed my story and she let me read these scrapbooks. That's why I expected to find something interesting. Ain't that something? Find something interesting, but what it's saying is that the answer to it all is homesickness, which many doctors told me so many times at counseling. I'm a little upset. The word homesickness can't explain the extraordinary experience I had. I saw Yoshiro-sama come down to me from a bright light in a bathroom. In the bathroom, I saw the dusky red nasty maggots come out of my blood vessels. This scrapbook doesn't explain any of that. What a shame. I don't understand how Mia-san was going to explain the cloud of maggots. Maybe she didn't have any explanation of that to begin with. Was it just a delusion? Maybe. I flipped through one of the other scrapbooks Mio-san let me borrow, looking for an explanation of the maggots I saw. Then I found it. It had the exact title I was looking for: About Maggots and the Curse of Yoshiro-sama. In the Meiji era, a group of villagers were on their way back in Hinamizawa, and they started discussing a rumor about a weird disease. They said that maggots started crawling out of the wounds of a person who left Hinamizawa, and that the maggots ate the person's body from the inside. The Shinto priest of the Furude shrine at that time explained that the weird disease was a sign of the curse of Yoshiro-sama. According to tradition, the Shinto priest showed the villagers an ancient scroll, and he told them that the story of the maggots had been passed down through the ages. This is what the scroll said: the world where the demons came from must be interpreted as the land of death, and the demons in that land of death had to live their lives while being eaten by maggots. The villagers who were of the demon's blood had nothing to worry about as long as they lived in Hinamizawa under the protection of a Yoshiro-sama. But once they left Hinamizawa, abandoning that protection, the maggots that had been sleeping in the blood of the demons would start to awaken, and they'd eat their bodies from the inside out. Oh my. This maggot disease carried. Oh, Jesus. This maggot disease scared the villagers for a while, and they asked the shrine to provide them with protective talisman whenever they had to leave the village on business. This is interesting as is similar to the way homesickness was dealt with by the Swiss in the Middle Ages. What a similar history, ain't it? After the war started, the delusion of the maggot disease faded away, but there remained the custom to send talismen to families that lived away from Hinamizawa. The talisman had the word maggot on them, but the most interesting part about all this is that the residents of Hinamizawa didn't know about the maggot disease until the rumors began. I thought that their unconscious worship made those people think of homesickness as a curse. So this case of the previously unknown maggot disease directly contradicted the research I had done so far. It's natural to think that the group of people who were on their way back to the village were lost in a mass delusion because they strongly believed in the curse, and that the Shinto priest took advantage of their state of panic to instill a deeper faith in them. But I'm not fully convinced that it was merely a coincidence that this mass delusion matched with the story in the old picture scroll. I wonder if it's possible to see maggots in a wound without having the prerequisite knowledge when a person is cursed by a Yoshiro-sama. I wish a Yoshiro-sama would put his curse on someone I could study. I'd love to see those maggots coming out of someone. I felt as if Mio-san was here and making that request of me. I remember. When she gave me the scrapbook, she said that I who might be the only one who could understand them. Only. Oh boy. I felt good just for a moment, because I found out that the maggots weren't a delusion. Oh, is it? But at the same time, it destroyed my excuse that it was a delusion. The maggots weren't a delusion, they were there. All of a sudden, my wrists, elbows, inner thighs, and neck started itching. I felt the urge to cut open a blood vessel, but I quietly held it down. I remembered that Mio-san looked very serious when I talked about the maggots. She must have thought it was creepy, but so did I. While I was crying because nobody believed me, a part of me didn't want to believe that my body was filled with those creepy things. I think part of me wanted to believe that it was a delusion, but now I know it wasn't. It wasn't a delusion. There are some people who had the same experience. Maggots in the demon's blood will awaken when you lose the protection of a Yoshiro-sama. In other words, they may not awaken under the protection of a Yoshiro-sama, but all the villagers still had the maggots in them without knowing it. People of the demon's blood are people who have the creepy maggots in their bodies. I try not to jump to conclusions and flip the pages again. I unconsciously looked for something related to maggots, about parasites and control of the host. Okay, hold on. I need to get some water. So, hold on for a moment. Alright, back with some water. Alright, let's continue reading. About parasites and control of the host. I clicked the OBS instead of the game. The maggot disease made me think about something. Is it possible to say that the extremely strong homesickness of Hinamizawa was an infectious disease caused by some kind of parasite? I'm not trying to connect the maggots they saw with parasites. I'm trying to think about the possibility that their culture, their religion might be associated with an infectious disease. Many infectious diseases are caused unintentionally by parasites. A parasite's host is literally its home. It wants to live within the host's body for as long as it can. The best way to do that is to coexist with the host without the host knowing it. But some parasites try to control their hosts and use them for prosperity. For example, some parasites have an ability to control their host in order to force them to be eaten by a superior host. A typical example is the Dicrocolium dendricrum. I probably butchered it, but oh well. It uses snails or ants as intermediate hosts, and it forces them to move to the upper side of vegetation so that it's easier for our superior host to consume it. One parasite that controls more complicated animals is called Toxoplasma gondii. It uses mice as intermediate hosts, with the superior host being cats. This parasite makes a mouse lose its fear of cats in order to increase its chance of it getting eaten, so that the parasite can live within a cat instead. There are parasites that choose hosts at random. The rabies virus is commonly known for that. It lives and breathes in the brain of the host, and it moves into the host's saliva through the salivary glands. It makes the host extremely aggressive in order to make it bite things randomly so that in turn can move into other hosts through the saliva. That's what rabies does. Well, can't guess we shouldn't trust the raccoons and all that shit, huh? Many parasites have a similar ability to control hosts to their benefit. The examples I used above are about parasites that move into other hosts to prosper, but I think there must be some kind of parasite that controls its host in order to have a comfortable environment in which to live. I want to try to connect this theory to the abnormal homing ability and homesickness of the Onikafuchi residents. Let's say there's some kind of parasite that exists in Hinamizawa and it lives within all of the villagers' bodies. For the parasite, Hinamizawa is the most comfortable environment to live in, so it gives the host a strong homing ability in order to make them stay in Hinamizawa. Furthermore, it causes the host to get homesick whenever they ignore this homing ability and try to leave. Parasites need hosts in which to live. It's convenient for them if their hosts build a community in the environment where it feels comfortable. This theory makes it easier for me to explain the mysteries I described earlier. The Transcendents of Onikafuchi knew about the existence of this parasite. They knew that, as hosts to the parasites, they couldn't live outside of the village. That's why they created a culture and rules that prohibited contact with the outside world. It also explains why people acted so abnormal during the damn conflict. So, the demons that came out of the swamp in the legend of Yashiro-sama can be interpreted as the mass spread of the parasite. The story about the demons attacking the villagers must be a metaphor for the behavior of the infected villagers, who were controlled by the parasite. This theory is too crazy. I should have just laughed about it. But I felt bad for Mio-san, so I decided not to. Hinawazawa is controlled by a parasite? You could use that theory to explain how the maggots came out of me. I felt a little bit dizzy. I was so confused, and a part of me thought it was ridiculous, and another part of me thought it was more convincing than any curse. But Mia-san was probably erased because she wrote these scrapbooks. If so, the contents of these scrapbooks must be something that they can't ignore. They tried to get all of her scrapbooks and consign them to oblivion. What if they notice some of her scrapbooks are missing? I felt a chill running through my spine. I have to keep it a secret that I had these scrapbooks, and I'll have to try to understand more about their contents. I remember Mia-san told me that the three families are behind the series of the mysterious deaths, and that they're trying to resurrect the cult of Yoshiro-sama. According to the theory I just read, the parasite must be trying to maintain the current environment of Hinamizawa. The healthiest environment for it is a completely closed village, just like the primitive Onikafuchi. It must be very comfortable for the parasite if no hosts go outside the village. They don't even like that the villagers often leave the village to go shopping. That means the parasite would try to goad the hosts into resurrecting the cult of the Yoshiro-sama. Hmm? I remember there was an article in the scrapbook saying that the demon's blood runs thickest in the three families. That would mean that they have a larger amount of the parasite in them than the other villagers, and that they're under its control. The three families seem to be planning to bring the village back to the Onikafuchi era. Reviving the Watanagashi festival after the dam conflict can be interpreted as their desire to revive the faith that had started to fade away in the Meiji era. The three families, especially the Sonozaki family, have a great influence over the region and the public organizations. What's going on here? I thought this to be a poorly written theory, but the pieces fit together one after another. I've never played a jigsaw puzzle as crazy as this. I felt my brain swirling due to this absurd theory. A part of me thought this was ridiculous, and another part of me thought I might be about to expose an unbelievable truth. When I tried to look into the center of it, I felt as if I was going to fall into the whirlpool and drown. I'll have to devote myself to reading more seriously. There must be some truth to this. It caused misfortune and made my life miserable after I moved to Ibaraki. I might be able to find the truth, including the cause of my parents' divorce and my desperate behavior. Right then, I heard a knock on the door all of a sudden, scaring me. I hid the scrapbooks under a cushion. Reina, you have a phone call. A phone call? This late? Who is it? It's from a bookstore. Did you order some books? They said they were Oishi-san from the Okinomiya bookstore. Oh my. what a what an unexpected phone call, to be quite honest. Well, I think it's a good time to end it from here. So, yeah, I believe the white text is Keiichi's perspective. So, next part, let's see what happens next. So, like, comment, and subscribe, and see you then. Have a good one.